If ever you get the chance to go to Tadbury Heath in Worcestershire, do look out for the old oak stump, just outside the village and close to the old moated medieval manor house. It used to be a beautiful old oak tree, but it's since been felled. It's just a stump with a plaque. Now, the plaque tells the story of two brothers who were brought up in the medieval moated manor house, who loved one another intently and shared a lot of the same ideas. They enjoyed the same sports, they enjoyed the same pastimes, they went into similar professions, but they also shared the same interests in the same type of women. And as young men in the early 1600s, they would have competitions to see who could woo a local wench from the village and bring her back beneath the oak tree and then carve their names or their initials into the tree. And this went on, it seems, until from adolescence into adult life, until they both fell in love with the same woman in the village. And so they had a competition to see who could marry her first. And they set about with various methods and tricks and techniques to do such a thing. We don't really know what they did, of course. We just know that they did eventually. One of them got married and left the family home and set up home with his wife elsewhere in a village about 3 miles away. Well, this was all very nice, but at the same time in the 1630s, we were having a lot of politics going on, and we were heading towards what would then become the English Civil War, a series of battles about whether the king had the right to be governing by divine right or whether the Parliament wanted representation from the people of the country. And this was going on, and people were beginning to take sides. In fact, it polarized the nation. Man was set against man, brother, quite literally, set against brother. And in this case, it so happened that the two brothers, although they shared every other interest together, their politics was on different sides. One was for the king and one was for Parliament. And it wasn't a done thing to be seen to be talking to others who had a different point of view. And so the two brothers, although they lived apart, they communicated to each other using a special method. For there was a hollow in the old oak tree, and they would write notes to each other, trying to persuade them to come to their side of the argument. And so one would leave a note in the tree and the other would retrieve it several days later and dismiss all those arguments and write a treaty about why the other brother should come onto his side and post the note into the tree. And this went on and on. But soon, in 1642, the first of the battles of the English Civil War began, and it became apparent to the brothers that they might have to be called up to fight and do their duty, to fight for their side of the argument. The last thing they wanted to do, because they loved each other, was to hurt one another. So they came and made a pact. They said that if ever they were called up and on the battlefield they came face to face with one another, they promised that they would turn rather than fight each other, that they would fight a fellow comrade on their side than hurt the other brother. And that seemed to be a perfect solution. We know that 6 months or so later there was the Battle of Tadbury Heath. It's not really so much a battle, more of a skirmish. It was an ambush, and 33 men were slain, both brothers among them. And we don't know really whether the two brothers ever actually faced one another and whether they would have turned and not fought each other and attacked a fellow comrade. There's no way that we can know that. Except there's an oddity to this, because years later, many years later, more in recent times, the oak tree became old, decrepit and dangerous, and it needed to be felled. And when it was, inside that secret hollow, was discovered a note, the last note ever posted, a note from one of the brothers to the other, but it was never received and never read. And that note had said that the married brother had discovered that his wife had secretly been seeing the other brother ever since their marriage. In fact, they'd been having an affair. And so incensed was he at this discovery, he said in his note to the other brother that the pact was null and void. Well, the note was never received, and we can only imagine that had the two brothers met face to face on the battlefield, what could possibly have happened? It makes you think, doesn't it?